Heartwarming secret revealed. Billionaire'S life-changing discovery changes everything forever. In the quaint town of Maple Grove, the leaves turned gold and crimson, whispering secrets of change. John Miller, a hard-working mechanic with calloused hands, had a heart as heavy as the bills stacked endlessly on his kitchen table. He watched as his 9-year-old daughter, Lily, laughed joyfully, her twinkling eyes mirroring the warmth of autumn. Each tick of the clock echoed with the memories of his father, who had given his life for their country, leaving behind a bittersweet legacy of sacrifice and resilience. But John was determined. He worked long hours in his dusty garage, fixing the cars that rumbled into his life. He dreamed of sending Lily to college, picturing her in caps and gowns, ready to conquer the world. Yet, as days turned into months, the dreams seemed to slip further away like a leaf caught in the winds of change. Everything shifted with the arrival of Richard Sinclair, a billionaire whose reputation preceded him like a storm cloud. Hushed conversations buzzed through the community about his cutthroat ways and luxurious lifestyle. People watched him warily, wondering what kind of man would settle in their close-knit town filled with modest homes and front porches adorned with faded wicker furniture. On a fateful day, John's old, rust-ridden truck sputtered and coughed just outside the community center, where Richard was organizing a charity event. Frustrated and out of options, John dragged his feet into the center, a swirl of doubt and curiosity deep in his chest. As Lily's excited laughter filled the space, John felt the warmth of her spirit light a fire within him. Walking into the room, he locked eyes with Richard. At first glance, they were worlds apart. But as they exchanged awkward words, John's heart started to show signs of thawing. Richard spoke of community support, his polished demeanor betraying hints of vulnerability. And when he noticed Lily chasing bubbles, laughter bubbling up around them, John's defenses creaked ever so slightly. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But then the storm came, raging through Maple Grove and tearing apart homes and hearts alike. Water rushed down streets, drowning dreams of security and hope. John's stomach tightened as he surveyed the aftermath, his sense of duty colliding with the fear of losing everything. The town rallied together, their resilience shining in the face of despair. Yet John couldn't shake the doubt that hung over Richard's commitment. Was he genuinely invested in their cries for help, or merely seeking redemption for a life of privilege? As the embers of hope mingled with the ashes of anxiety, disaster struck again at the dairy farm, leaving the town paralyzed. John felt the weight of the community pressing down on his shoulders, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw Richard, hesitant yet steadfast. Would he rise to the occasion or retreat into the shadows of his wealth? Beneath the surface of friendship where tensions brewed and loyalty wavered, the question loomed large: could their bond survive the trials ahead, or would the social chasms tear them apart? The winds in Maple Grove had settled, leaving a haunting stillness in the air. John stood in the remains of the dairy farm, his heart heavy as he surveyed the destruction. The once vibrant barn sprawled in disarray, walls collapsed and feeds scattered like lost dreams. The townsfolk moved like shadows, their faces marked with despair. Richard stood a bit further back, hands shoved deep into his pockets, his eyes scanning the wreckage. John noticed the tension in his posture. Was this billionaire really going to step up, or was it all just a facade? He couldn't help the skepticism that bubbled within him. After all, Richard's life had been so far removed from their struggles. Lily tugged at his shirt, her small fingers pressing against his side. "Daddy, can we help them?" Her voice was soft and filled with earnestness. It pierced through John's turmoil. He had been so consumed with doubt that he almost forgot how resilient and hopeful children could be. "Of course, kiddo. We can do something," he replied, his resolve solidifying as he kneeled to meet her eyes. "Just like the time we helped Mrs. Thompson with her garden. Together, we can make a difference, right?" As she nodded, he felt the weight of the community nudging him forward. Together, they approached the group of neighbors gathering around the wreckage. "All right, folks," John called out, attempting to rally them. "We can't let this stop us. Let us pull together and clear this place up. We'll plant new seeds, and before you know it, it'll be as good as new." Richard's voice broke into his thoughts. "I can provide resources. Supplies, trucks, everything you need." Heads turned, murmurs rippling through the crowd. Some looked skeptical, whispering behind their hands. Others glanced at John, as if waiting for him to respond to Richard's offer. John hesitated. "Why now, Richard? Why this farm?" Richard stepped forward, his expression serious. "Because it's time I put my privilege to use for something meaningful. This place needs help, and I have the means to provide it. My wealth isn't just for champagne and jets. I want to be part of something real." The air thickened with a mix of hope and doubt. John could see flickers of curiosity in the eyes of his neighbors, but he also saw uncertainty. If they accepted Richard's offer, would it bind them closer or create a deeper divide? Lily tugged his sleeve again, her eyes wide. "Daddy, what do you think?" John searched Richard's face, seeking something, an inkling of truth in the billionaire's words. It was hard to shake the past. He couldn't forget the stories of bloodied business deals and broken promises that trailed Richard. But then, there was also this simmering desperation in the town, a longing for help that felt unbearable. What was he willing to risk for his daughter and their community's future? Taking a deep breath, he finally decided, squaring his shoulders. "All right, Richard. Let us help each other. But just know this: if you don't mean it, I will not let you off the hook." Richard nodded, a flicker of respect crossing his face. As they began organizing supplies, John felt the tide start to shift. Maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild the dairy farm. Perhaps they could build something more: a connection, a bridge between worlds that had seemed so far apart. But darkness loomed overhead. With the remnants of the storm still palpable, there were whispers of greater dangers lurking just out of sight. John's heart raced as he overheard snippets of conversation among the townsfolk about Richard's past secrets that could unravel everything he hoped to build. Could they truly overcome the barriers that divided them? Or would the rise of a new beginning be crushed under the weight of betrayal? John felt the weight of skepticism still resting heavily in the pit of his stomach as they began discussing the logistics of the recovery. He watched Richard interact with the community, noticing how the billionaire's confident smile sometimes faltered when faced with their wary glances. For every neighbor nodding in tentative agreement, another remained resolute in their doubts, arms crossed in defiance. As they sorted through the mess, Richard busied himself unrolling plans for trucks and equipment deliveries. He seemed genuinely motivated, but John couldn't shake the worry gnawing at him. Too many stories echoed in his mind, stories of neighbors betrayed, of trust given freely and trampled underfoot. "Look," Richard said, breaking through John's reverie, "I know I haven't earned your trust. But I promise, my heart's in this. I grew up in a small town just like this one, surrounded by farms, families. It shaped who I am." John looked at him without saying a word. "I lost my way, I admit that," Richard continued, his voice lower, nearly drowned out by distant conversations of hopeful neighbors. "But I want to help you rebuild. We can make this community grow again. Together." Lily's small hand clasped tightly in John's, her unwavering belief in them both stirred something inside him. He wanted to believe. He needed to believe. "Daddy?" she whispered, pulling him back from his thoughts. "Can we really make it good again?" The innocence of her question sent a tidal wave of emotion crashing over him. "Yes, sweetheart," he said, a shaky breath escaping him. "We can." As the townsfolk began to separate into groups, some organizing supplies while others shared ideas, John stood beside Richard. He could see it, the flicker of a fragile hope igniting in the air. Yet, doubt lingered like storm clouds overhead. Hours passed, and the energy of the group built steadily. Children dashed in and out of their parents' sight, laughter threading through the fabric of recovery. But just as John started feeling a shred of optimism creeping in, the atmosphere changed. A heavy silence settled over the group, as a nearby couple fell into a hushed conversation, their eyes sharp with speculation. What if he's lying? Someone whispered, catching John's strained attention. Those billionaires don't just suddenly care. Maybe we're just pawns in his big money game, another chimed in, the undercurrent of tension snaking through the gathered crowd. John clenched his fists, torn between anger and the urge to defend Richard. Before he could voice his thoughts, Richard spoke up, louder this time. I know I have a reputation, but I'm not here to play games. I owe it to myself to make things right. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd like a spark igniting a fire. Part of him wanted to intervene, but what could he say? What could he promise when even he wasn't entirely sold on Richard's intentions? Just then, Lily, with all her fearless sincerity, stepped forward. You have to prove it. She stated, her voice ringing out above the murmurs, captivating everyone's attention. Show us you mean it. Help us. John's heart swelled with pride as he watched her, but he also felt the sharp sting of anxiety. What kind of demand was she making? Would this only deepen the divide? Richard smiled, but there was something different in his eyes. A flicker of determination. I will, Lily. I'll start by organizing a community cleanup next weekend. Everyone's welcome. We'll lay groundwork for the new farm. Families exchanged cautious looks. Was this true? Could he deliver on his word? I'll bake pies for everyone who helps. Someone called out, bringing a hint of laughter back to the crowd. But John's thoughts spiraled. What if that moment wouldn't last? What would happen if Richard's history crept back in, shattering the fragile connections they were trying to build? As the day drifted toward sunset, the shadows began to stretch long like the uncertainties veiling their hearts. John glanced at Lily, still beaming with hope, and then back to Richard. Could he truly bridge that gap, or was this just another fleeting illusion? The air was thick with questions, and John realized that answers were still clouded by doubt. What would it take for a broken community to trust again, especially when they were standing on the edge of history about to repeat itself? The sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow that danced upon the faces of townsfolk. With the air tinged by tentative hope, they made their way home, conversations buzzing like restless bees. John and Lily lingered, watching Richard pack up his plans. Do you think he really means it? Lily asked, her small voice breaking through the silence as they turned to leave. I don't know, sweetheart. I want to believe he does, but... John's words trailed off, tangled with his swirling doubts. The next few days felt like stepping into a waiting game. Richard sent out flyers and began knocking on doors, rallying the community for the cleanup. At first, only a handful of families showed interest, but slowly, as the weekend approached, more joined. John couldn't shake the feel of unease in his chest. Uncertainty settled like fog over Sunnyvale. Every time Richard arrived in town, people's whispers grew louder. What if he walks away once the cameras are gone? What if he's just doing this for publicity? The questions ate away at the heart of the town. On the day of the cleanup, the sky felt heavy but promising. John parked their truck at the old community center, a building that held so many memories. As they stepped out, the sight took John's breath away. Neighbors filled the lot, tools in hand, faces hardwood but determined. Richard stood at the front with an infectious smile, welcoming each one like long-lost friends. Look at them, Daddy. Lily tugged his hand, excitement lighting up her face. They came. Yeah, they did, John murmured, his heart swelling with pride. But the overhanging doubt still gnawed at him. Richard gathered everyone, his voice firm as he spoke about their shared goal. This isn't just about picking up trash. It's about reclaiming what we've lost. We have an opportunity to rise better. Together. A cheer erupted from the crowd, spurring energy into their task. John joined the group, still torn but pushed forward by Lily's unwavering enthusiasm as she worked beside him, chatting with other children, her laughter brightening the atmosphere. As they picked through the debris of old memories, Richard circulated, hands getting dirty, guiding and encouraging. John caught snippets of conversations, people connecting, laughing, sharing stories. It was heartwarming. Maybe, just maybe, his fears were misplaced. But then, right when momentum surged, John's attention shifted when he saw Richard step aside, his phone buzzing urgently in his pocket. Richard's expression darkened as he spoke softly, his hands gesturing but his eyes were distant. He emerged a few moments later, his face a mask of composure, but John's gut twisted. Something felt off. He watched Richard approach Lily, who was kneeling down, enamored with a ladybug crawling across her hands. "You're doing great, kiddo," Richard said, ruffling her hair. "You're a star." Her eyes sparkled. "Can we really do this?" Richard's smile stiffened for a moment before he answered, "Yes, Lily. We can." But John saw something in Richard's gaze, conflicting emotions swirling beneath the surface as he glanced away, lost for a brief moment. After hours of community effort, everyone gathered in the center, sweat glistening on brows and satisfaction shining in their eyes. A few of the women began spreading out snacks and drinks they had brought, laughter bubbling as stories flowed. Then, unexpectedly, Richard's assistant approached him, whispering. Richard's smile faded, and he nodded slightly, face hardening. John's heart raced. They were just starting to come together. What is it? He thought, dread creeping in. What secret is he hiding? As Richard turned and clasped his hands together to address the crowd again, John felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever came next could shatter all they'd worked for. And as Richard cleared his throat, the air thickened with tension. John couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of another revelation, one that would either build or break them. "Before we move forward," Richard announced, "there's something I need to share with all of you." Richard's voice echoed in the hushed crowd, pausing just long enough to grab everyone's attention. Nervousness etched lines across his forehead, yet his tone remained steady. "What I'm about to share changes everything for all of us." John felt his heart skip a beat. Next to him, Lily tugged at his shirt, her youthful exuberance fading into uncertainty. He wished he could tell her that everything was going to be okay, but his mind raced with possibilities. Richard took a breath, his gaze sweeping through faces painted with curiosity and apprehension. "Over the past few weeks, I've been meeting with officials about revitalizing areas like ours. I've seen the power of community efforts around the country, places that, like Sunnyvale, were struggling, but now they're thriving because of a simple realization." His words hung in the air, anticipation thickening. He gestured to the piles of trash that had already been cleared. "It's about coming together, believing in each other, and having the courage to embrace change." A low murmuring rose from the crowd, but John could barely focus on Richard's speech anymore. The emotion roiling inside him felt like a storm. Did he really mean it? Was this just more empty words? Richard continued, "But there's more. We have the opportunity to partner with an organization that focuses on community gardens and clean initiatives, one that can help us transform not just the parks, but the heart of Sunnyvale itself." Several people clapped. A wave of excitement rippled through the crowd, but John remained skeptical. He glanced at Lily, who was now beaming, the light in her eyes reflecting pure hope. She didn't seem troubled like him. "And on top of that," Richard said, his voice rising with fervor, "I'm committed to investing my own resources, not just time but financial support, to kickstart this movement." Gasps filled the air. Some clapped again while others eyed each other, stunned into silence. "Wait," John muttered, barely hearing his own voice. "What does this mean?" There had to be something more under the surface, something Richard wasn't telling them. Richard smiled, an expression that was both radiant and unsettling. "We can create a beautiful space here, reawaken the spirit of this town. I want to see children laughing in parks, families enjoying their community. But we need to do this together. All of us." As if on cue, Lily jumped up. "Yes, we can help. Right, Daddy?" Her enthusiasm was contagious, and some in the crowd began cheering. The moment hung heavily before Richard spoke again. But, he paused, glancing back at his assistant before continuing, we will need volunteers, and I ask for transparency in our effort. What's that supposed to mean? John's inner voice shouted. Was this about genuine help, or was he simply pawing at something more shallow? Richard relaxed, seeming to sense the wave of mixed emotions engulfing the crowd. And if we work hard enough, I promise you'll see real changes, real results. The cheers grew louder, but John stood still. One thought nagged at him, clinging tightly. What was Richard hiding? As the energy of the room shifted, the crowd began to rally around Richard. People started moving closer, eager to sign up and be part of something bigger. The atmosphere crackled with possibility and hope, and yet John felt himself retreat inward. He watched Lily beam with excitement, clapping alongside their neighbors, and something twisted painfully in his heart. He wanted to believe. At that moment, he couldn't help but feel the weight of doubt pulling him down. Richard's voice broke through the noise, so, let us get started. Let us all gather our strength and show the world what Sunnyvale is made of. The crowd roared with approval, but John found himself frozen, fighting against the tide of optimism washing over them. Did Richard truly understand the essence of their community, or was he merely orchestrating an act? And then, before John could react, he caught a glimpse of Richard's assistant again, a look of anxiety creeping across her face. Something was brewing beneath the surface, something that could turn this celebration back into chaos. Is everyone ready? Richard asked, and the crowd broke into cheers, but John was left with one silent question that haunted him: would he have the courage to face the truths that were starting to unravel? As Richard motioned for everyone to regroup, a sense of impending change loomed over Sunnyvale, pulling tighter with every heartbeat. But deep down, John knew this was just the beginning. What was really waiting in the shadows? The clamor of excitement filled the air, pulsating through the crowd like a heartbeat. John watched as Richard began to outline plans for the community garden. His words resonated with passion and urgency. He half-heartedly followed along, letting the energy of the bystanders wash over him while he remained rooted in doubt. Lily's laughter danced in the air as she hopped from foot to foot, oblivious to the uncertainty staining her father's heart. Daddy! We have to help. Can we help? She pleaded, eyes wide with hope. The innocence in her voice pierced John's defenses, prompting an internal struggle. Sure, kiddo, he managed to utter, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He still felt the weight of skepticism, heavy like an anchor dragging him down, but he couldn't crush her spirit. Not now. As Richard began calling volunteers to the front, John's gaze flickered toward the back of the crowd. There, his eyes locked onto Richard's assistant, Maria. Her brow was furrowed with concern, and John's instincts kicked in. What did she know that they didn't? A shout pulled him back. You there! Come on up. Richard pointed dramatically at a pair of older men who were tentatively whispering to one another. With encouragement from the crowd, they approached the stage, but John sensed something misaligned. Lily tugged at his sleeve, drawing him back to the present. Let us go help. Please. She begged softly, pulling at the threads of his heart. Finding a spark of determination within, he nodded. Okay, let us see what we can do. They walked towards the stage together, each step aligning them closer with the possibility of change. As they edged nearer, Richard praised the newcomers. We need diverse voices, all hands on deck. We're doing this for each other, for Sunnyvale. John's stomach nodded. This wasn't just about a garden or clean parks, it felt like they were laying down the very fabric of their community. He wondered if anyone else felt the same cracks beneath the surface. Maria stepped forward, nervously adjusting her glasses as she began to speak. Richard, she started, but he immediately cut her off with another enthusiastic announcement about the next steps. You'll all receive instructions in the next few days, and we'll need to meet again to discuss funding and logistics. Richard declared, his charisma intoxicating the crowds. Hesitant nods filled the front rows, and excitement bubbled once more. Yet something flickered in Maria's eyes, a warning. Whatever it was, it ignited John's instincts further. Lily, can you stay with the others? John asked, kneeling to meet her eye level. Concern flickered across her face. "I'll be right there," she assured him, and he drew back reluctantly, glancing once more to Maria. He needed to understand her hesitation. He approached her carefully, trying to break through the wave of festivity around them. "Maria, what is going on?" he asked gently, low enough that others wouldn't hear. She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "I'm worried, John. It all seems too good to be true. Richard is driving this, but I have questions. He's not the only one with financial interests here." "Interests?" John echoed, heart racing. "What do you mean?" Before Maria could respond, Richard's laughter resonated over the crowd. "Let us get our community back to where it belongs," he hollered, and the crowd erupted with applause once more. Maria rolled her eyes slightly, a subtle, but significant motion. "He's not who he says he is. Just be careful. There's a lot at stake here." John's heart raced. What truth was she hinting at? As he turned back to the buzzing crowd, his eyes darted instinctively towards Richard, now basking in the accolades. John felt the weight of uncertainty pressing deeper. If Maria was right, what would that mean for the community and for Lily? Emboldened by a surge of concern, he vowed to uncover the truth behind this scheme, whatever it was. But as Richard's voice boomed above the applause, John couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the tip of the iceberg. He had to find answers, and soon. For Lily's sake. In that moment, with the warmth of hope tempered by shadows of doubt, he realized the real battle was just beginning. And in the realm of secrets and community trust, what if he unearthed something far more than he bargained for? "Hold on, there's still more to discover," he murmured to himself, setting his resolve. What hidden truths awaited him just beneath the surface? The festival atmosphere felt electric, like a vibrant current running through the gathering. John turned, searching the crowd for Lily. She was deep in animated conversation with another child, her laughter ringing out bright and clear. In that moment, she reminded him of the life he longed for, one filled with light, joy, and no shadows lurking just beyond the horizon. But as he glanced back at Richard, still jeering and rallying the crowd, a cold chill slithered down John's spine. A part of him resisted Richard's charisma. Something didn't sit right, and he could feel it pulsing under his skin. "Stay strong," he whispered to himself before edging through the throng of people toward the back, where Maria stood with her arms crossed, still wearing that worried expression. She was an anchor in the tumult, a voice that cut through his uncertainty. "John," she greeted him, a mix of relief and apprehension flashing in her eyes. "I couldn't let this go without trying to talk to you again. I feel lost in all this excitement," he replied, gesturing towards the jubilant crowd. "I want to believe it's genuine, but you're saying it's not. What do you know?" Maria took a deep breath, hesitating as she glanced around once more. "This garden looks great on the surface," she admitted. "But it's not just about flowers and vegetables. Richard's involved with investors who want to grab this land for more than just community's sake." John's face scrunched in disbelief. "What do you mean? Who? What all is at stake?" At that moment, Richard's booming voice reached them again. "We're going to transform Sunnyvale. Who's with me?" Cheers erupted, making John clench his fists. The public saw the promise, the warmth, the change. But all he could see was a potential disaster masked by cheerful slogans. "Investors, developers. They want to put in apartments, strip malls, all in the name of community revitalization," Maria explained, urgency tightening the edges of her tone. "I've seen it happen before. The community gets sold promises that evaporate overnight, and we're left with emptiness." "So, this isn't just about a garden?" John asked, his heart pounding. He felt the pieces scattered around his thoughts, wanting to fit together but still eluding clarity. "No, it's not. Richard's too charming for this to be just altruism. We need to dig deeper." Her eyes locked onto his. "You have to be careful. If you get involved, it might mean putting yourself and Lily at risk. No, John shook his head vehemently. I can't let her grow up in a community that's just a front for something corrupt. He looked beyond her, and for a brief moment, he imagined Lily playing in a lush, real garden, surrounded by friends and neighbors, freedom blooming all around them. As if sensing his thoughts, Richard's laughter cut through, echoing in John's bones. We must protect what's ours. He thudded a fist into his palm. This is for all of us. Why don't more people see the truth? John muttered, his brow furrowing. Maria placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Because they want to believe. They need to believe. Hope is a powerful thing. A plan began to form in John's mind. What if we join this effort but approach it critically? We could gather a group, look into the paperwork, the investors see what's real. Maria's eyes lit with a flicker of hope. That could work, but we'll need allies. We can't do this alone, especially if he catches on. Let us start by talking to neighbors, setting up meetings, John proposed, resolve settling deep within him. He could use his own fear to fuel this mission of truth, the battle not just for the garden but for the heart of Sunnyvale itself. John Maria's voice softened, apprehensive. When he discovers our plan, I won't let that happen, he assured her, determination electrifying his words. The world could change for his daughter. For the community they existed within. Together, they would shine a light into the corners of deception. But as John scanned the crowd, something unexpected broke his focus. A figure in the distance caught his eye, tall, shadowy, and powerful. It was Richard, who seemed to be watching him closely, a slight smirk playing on his lips. Did he already suspect something amiss? Heart thumping harder than before, John faced Maria again. This is bigger than we imagined. We need to act before it's too late. We need to be careful. Or we may lose everything. A sense of urgency surged within him. What would come next? What hidden plots lay in wait, ready to derail their plans? They were on the brink of discovering something monumental. John glanced at Lily, her laughter still ringing joyfully through the air, and drew in a deep breath. Was this the moment they had to stand tall? Let us get to work, he stated firmly. Little did he know, what lay ahead was a twisted path leading to dark revelations and choices that could alter everything forever. John's heart raced as he walked with Maria through the festival, weaving past families enjoying cotton candy and kids chasing balloons. Each laugh hung heavy in the air, promising bliss while concealing the shadows lingering just beneath the surface, a contrast he could no longer ignore. Where do we even start? He asked, scanning the crowd filled with hopeful faces. The tension in his chest grew tighter, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. Maria frowned, deep in thought. We need to find people who care about this community, who know Richard's true intentions. Not everyone here is blinded by his charm. She glanced around. If we can raise their awareness, we could confront him together. Right. John nodded, feeling more determined. He thought back to his neighbors, the ones who welcomed them when they moved to Sunnyvale, the small reminders of a close-knit community he wanted to protect. Let us divide and conquer, he suggested. I'll talk to Mr. Collins, the old guy down the street. He's been around forever, seen everything. You could reach out to Claire and Miguel. They know the kids in the park, and they might have already heard something about Richard. Maria grinned, encouragement shining in her eyes. Perfect. We'll start there. But, John, her expression turned serious again. Keep your guard up. Richard could be clever enough to sniff out our plans. He'll try to shift focus back to the good things happening. I know, John replied, steeling himself. But if we don't take this chance, we risk losing everything for our kids. The thought of Lily growing up blind to the veils of corruption struck a chord deep within him. Suddenly, the joyous noise of the festival was interrupted by a commotion at the center stage. Richard had just begun a speech filled with promises of prosperity and community unity. A simmering determination flared up in John's chest, and he found himself unwillingly drawn back towards the crowd. Let us listen, Maria said, pulling him just a bit closer. Let us see how he plans to win over the hearts here. They stood at the fringes of the gathering. Richard's voice rose above the crowd, rich with confidence. Together, we will make Sunnyvale the shining example of progress. Imagine a place filled with opportunities. A bright future for our children. He paused, letting the applause wash over him. John felt anxious. This is manipulation, he whispered to Maria. He's hiding the truth behind flowery words. How can people not see? Because hope is seductive, Maria murmured back, her eyes narrowing at the speaker. And they want to believe the future will be better. But they don't realize what's being offered in return. As the speech continued, John monitored the crowd, noticing the mixed reactions of awe and suspicion flickering across their faces. Perhaps the doubt he felt wasn't entirely absent. Yet, he couldn't let Richard's charm overpower his community's spirit. Then a loud voice erupted from the crowd. What about the investments, Richard? Where's the money really going? People turned to the origin of the challenge, a voice rising above the tide. John felt a rush of adrenaline pulse through him. Was it someone wanting to expose Richard's facade? In a quick exchange, Richard waved it away, grinning with feigned nonchalance. Ah, that's a misunderstanding. I assure you, every decision made is for your benefit. But let us not dwell on fear, let us celebrate what we can achieve. The initial challenger seemed to shrink back under the intensity of Richard's response, and John's heart sank. Fear had silenced truth before. Would they let Richard manipulate them again? John Maria leaned closer, urgency in her voice. What if we mobilized people who care here and now? We can't let this go unanswered. Nodding, John felt a surge of conviction. We need to speak up. If people are willing to question, we can gather a group. Build a voice strong enough to shatter this facade. But just as he spoke, Richard's eyes darted to them, a predator sensing a shift in the wind. The smirk returned, a knowing look filled with dark amusement. That sent a jolt through John. What if he's already onto us? Maria whispered, worry clouding her features. They stood on the precipice of action, yet anxiety gripped them tight. Then we need to be faster. Because if Richard knows what we're planning, John trailed off, the weight of impending confrontation heavy in the air. Could they gather enough support before it was too late? The stakes were higher than ever, it was now or never. Lily's laughter echoed again, pulling John's focus back. He saw her whirl in delight with newfound friends. Could this joy be what they fought for? We're doing this, John affirmed, a fire igniting in him anew. For her and everyone else in Sunnyvale. As they turned to strategize, Richard's gaze fell upon them yet again, anticipation lighting in his eyes. The battle lines were drawn, and John felt the pulse of destiny dance in every beat of his heart. The next move would set everything in motion, steering the course of Sunnyvale's fate toward light or darkness. Would they rise to transform their community or fall into the depths of Richard's carefully planned deception? John felt the adrenaline coursing through him, sparking his senses. He turned, scanning the vibrant festival scene before him, a kaleidoscope of laughter, colors, and the tantalizing scent of fair food. But within him, only darkness loomed, a tight knot of urgency and fear. Let us move, he said, grabbing Maria's hand. She nodded, determination igniting her eyes. I'll head towards the park. Claire always brings the kids there. She'll listen. Great. I'll go to Mr. Collins. He'll know if any others are uncomfortable with Richard. They shared a brief but fierce look of solidarity, and then they parted ways, their hearts beating with the same purpose. As John walked down the bustling festival lanes, he fought to stay focused. People chatted, danced, and waved to friends across the fairgrounds, seemingly unaware of the threat lurking beneath Richard's charismatic smile. A chill ran down his spine when he thought of how easily fear could stifle their voices. What if they stayed silent? Approaching Mr. Collins' house, John found himself catching his breath. The old man had always been a pillar of the neighborhood. Would he still be the wise sage he once was? Or had Richard's tales ensnared him like so many others? He knocked, heart racing. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing Mr. Collins, his silver hair glinting in the afternoon sun. The worry lines etched on his face deepened as he took in John's expression. "John, what's wrong? Is there somewhere we can talk?" John glanced around, making sure no one was lingering close enough to hear. Mr. Collins nodded, stepping aside. Once inside, John could feel the weight of the conversation sinking in. "It's about Richard," John began, taking a deep breath. "I don't think people really understand what he's doing. We need to wake them up." The old man's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "He's playing us, Mr. Collins. Promises of jobs and progress, it's all smoke and mirrors. I need your help. People trust you." Mr. Collins' gaze hardened, then softened. "I've seen things come and go in this town. You might be right. But do people really want to hear it?" John's heart pounded. This was the moment. They need to hear it. And they'll listen to you. We can have a neighborhood meeting, speak the truth. The old man's expression wavered between contemplation and reluctance. "If you're willing to stand up, John, I'll lead the way. But it can't just come from us, we need more voices." "Yes. We'll rally the parents in the park, the ones who felt uneasy. Others will follow." Feeling an unanticipated swell of hope, John left with urgency coursing through him. He headed for the park, envisioning a chorus of voices rising against the tide of false promises. Change was possible, he could feel it. As he approached, John spotted Maria and Claire. They were chatting with a small group of parents, laughter punctuating their conversation. But the laughter faded into curiosity as they met John's earnest eyes. "We need to gather everyone," John said, urgency thick in his voice. "Tonight. We're taking a stand against Richard." Claire raised an eyebrow. "What's going on, John?" Quickly, he filled them in, aware of others beginning to notice their intense discussion. Eyes widened with realization, murmurs swept through the crowd. Disbelief mixed with burgeoning determination crackled in the air. "We can't let fear hold us back anymore," Maria said, her voice rising. "This is our chance. For our kids, for our community. Who's with us?" A wave of agreement rippled through the group. As they rallied together, a spark of hope ignited. A mother stepped forward and spoke out, her voice shaking yet determined. "I don't believe Richard has our best interest at heart." John's heart raced at the sight of momentum building, people voicing their questions, their fears, their hopes. But just as the crowd began to gather strength, a shadow fell upon them. Richard stood at the edge of the park, flanked by supporters, the corners of his mouth curling in that dangerous, confident smirk. "Is there a party I wasn't invited to?" he called out, his voice cutting through the buzz. Panic laced the air, and John's stomach churned. Had they stepped too far into the light? Would Richard wield his power to silence them again? "Stay strong," Maria whispered, squeezing John's hand. With Richard's piercing gaze locking onto him, John braced himself. This was at the point of no return. Would they stand united against the looming threat, or would fear force them back into silence? He felt the pulse of urgency, the weight of his responsibility. This was bigger than any one of them. The future of Sunnyvale hung in the balance, and John knew the next few moments would define them all. As Richard stepped closer, the atmosphere shifted, thickening with tension. The sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows of the people standing firm. John, with Lily's laughter fading into the background, felt the weight of every pair of eyes locking onto him. This was the moment he had prepared for. "Richard," John called out, his voice steady, cutting through the uncertainty. He took a step forward, feeling the collective breaths of the crowd. "You've promised a bright future for Sunnyvale, but at what cost? We need transparency." Richard's smile broadened, but there was a flicker of confusion. "John, my intentions are clear. I'm here to uplift this community, to help you and your families. We're about to embark on a transformative journey together." A few murmurs spread among the gathered crowd. Hope battled skepticism, and John could see it mirrored in his neighbors' faces. They wanted to trust, but fear and doubt loomed large. "We're not asking for a handout, we're asking for honesty," he pressed on, determination surging. "This isn't just about a garden or jobs, it's about genuine growth for our town." Richard's expression hardened as he assessed John's challenge. "You think I would play you all for fools? I've invested in Sunnyvale because I care about places like this." "Your past doesn't support that claim," John shot back, his heart racing, rage igniting in his chest. "You've built your fortune on broken backs. How can you expect us to believe this is different?" Silence blanketed the crowd. Parents exchanged nervous glances, their expressions an uneasy blend of fear and disbelief. Lily's little voice piped up unexpectedly. "You should show us how you care. Help us because you want to, not just because you have to." Gasps filled the air, and Richard's composure wavered briefly. The crowd watched, stunned, as John's heart soared with pride. "Children see the truth more clearly than we do," John affirmed, searching for allies in the crowd. "We want hope to flourish in this community, not deceit hidden behind flashy words." Richard's facade began to crack. "This can't be the story we tell. We're moving forward, and I want to be the villain here." "Then stop acting like one," Maria shouted, courage radiating from her. "Your mere presence tells us you want to take, not give. Prove us wrong." Richard stood frozen momentarily, irritation flashing across his features like lightning. But in response, the crowd began to chant softly, steadily building. "Prove us wrong. Prove us wrong." As their voices grew louder, John felt a surge of energy. This moment was shifting into something monumental. The power of community rose around him like a wave, crashing against Richard's confidence. Seeing the tide turn, John took another step forward. "We want to see the plans, the investors, the development, the walkthrough. We want assurance this is for us." Richard scowled, looking more like a cornered animal than a poised businessman. "I cannot give you everything at once." "Then how can we trust you?" John countered, frustration now palpable. An undeniable vulnerability crept into the air, weaving the fabric of their collective fear into something usable, a connection. Richard's eyes darted around, measuring the growing tension in the crowd. "Fine. Let us meet then. A town hall, transparency for all, if that's what you need, not just talk," John interrupted urgently. "We want actions that bring real change." Richard hesitated, then nodded curtly, exuding a weary acknowledgement of defeat. "You have my word." With those words, a wave of relief washed over John, though he remained cautious. They had shifted the momentum for now, but could they maintain it? As the crowd began to disperse and conversations buzzed again, John felt an emotional weight lift. Lily jumped into his arms, her radiant smile brightening the shadows that had lingered. "Daddy, we did it. We made him listen." "Yes, we did, sweetheart," he replied, holding her close, feeling her warmth nestled against him. Around them, parents began discussing ideas for the town hall meeting, the air now ripe with hope. John cast a glance at Richard, who seemed to retreat into the distance, his earlier bravado fading. There was uncertainty in his eyes, and doubt still lingered. "Wait, Maria," John called as she began to walk away. She turned, her brow furrowing. "Can we keep going with this? We'll need allies in our corner to push for what we want." "Definitely," she replied, a smile spreading. "We rally our neighbors, gather those who care. This is big." And as they walked back toward the park, the sunset painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, a reminder of their resilience illuminating the path ahead. They faced uncertainty, but now hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. The battle had only just begun. But John knew, with their community united, they had the power to forge their destiny. Now, if you want to be part of the next adventure and witness lives changing like you just saw, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss out. This is the moment to show your support. Remember to leave a like now, feed that algorithm and help more folks find these incredible stories. Don't wait not even one more second. Comment your feelings about this ending and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support makes all the difference.